What up, guys? Welcome back. We're out here again, dirty camera and all. Good golly. Messing with the cab. We got, on the last video of this thing, we just got it started. Didn't have throttle pedal or none of that stuff. The transmission wasn't hooked up. It was literally just basically a motor sitting on a stand, power and ground, some fuel, hit the key, and it started up. So, pulled the transmission out of this thing. Got the spacer put in behind the crankshaft and in front of the torque converter, so now they're good. I did have issues with the converter that he had in the car, so I called him, we talked about it, and we opted for a Jegs XHD 6341 or 431, and it's 3,500 to 3,800 stall. They're rated like 800 horsepower. So we got that tossed in there, got it filled up with fluid, made tranny cooler lines, got that out of the way, got all the shift linkage and everything routed, hooked up, and everything functions there. Pretty much after that, all I needed to do was fix the brake line, which I got it fixed. Had to rewire the solid state relay for the trans brake button. I had it mounted on the dash. He didn't like it, so I moved it, hid it underneath the dash, and now you can't see it, but let me show you kind of where everything's at. So now we've got our trans brake button down here. That way you don't have to hold on to the steering wheel while you're doing the trans brake button. Everything runs up, solid state's mounted underneath the dash, and then everything's zip tied out of the way. I still gotta hook my 12 volt wire up to the back of the ignition switch. That way the solid state can get power and send power to the trans brake to get it to function. And then we've got our throttle cable and everything hooked up. Got the billet bracket, made a cable, got all that done, so everything functions down there. And then the gas pedal, which I don't know if I showed it, but I'll go ahead and show you. You might have just seen it right there. But we made this bracket down here, got it all mounted to the firewall, and then used the Speedway spoon style gas pedal. So now we have all the throttle action. So yeah. I'm gonna pull the SD card out now that I've got all my input and output wires wired up to the solid state relay. I'm gonna pull the SD card out, set that up in the tune, and make sure the base tune for this is all good. And then we'll get this thing started up, get it outside, let it run for a little bit so it can heat cycle, and we'll check the trans fluid. All right, here goes nothing. I don't know how long it's been since this car's moved under its own power. But we're about to attempt to move it out. Fire this thing up. There's neutral. Let's try the trans brake button and see if it goes into reverse. Oh boy. First gear. Smoking a little bit. Sit out here and run for a few minutes. It pulled outside on its own power. Alright, so we're gonna let it sit here and run, let it get some heat in it, and make sure the cooling fan and everything's cycled. It's still got a weird little noise coming out of the exhaust pipe over here. This thing very well, which I don't know anything about the motor, but this thing very well could have like a burnt valve or something in it, or they didn't, you know, I think this was a junkyard deal. So I think they put head gaskets on it, eBay head studs. So I don't know how good all the internals of this thing are, but yeah, it's got something funny on that driver's side thing. I put a coil on that one cylinder. It sounds like it's number one. The other day I had it running and you couldn't even hear it, like once it got warm. So maybe it'll go away once it gets warmed up. And if so, it's probably a valve issue not sealing up, causing like a little random misfire. I needed to check compression on it just to see. Now that it's ran, heat cycled and stuff, I'd have a better idea of what the compression is. But yeah, anyways, we're gonna let it run. We'll check the training fluid here in just a minute. So it's been sitting out here running. Check the trans fluid level, everything's good there. So I ran out of gas, so I had to go get some gas for it. Because apparently I've had it idling that much. I think I put about 6 gallons in this thing already. But let's double check everything here and put this thing on the 2-step. I got a little bit of a valve cover leak back here. I need to readjust this valve cover back here on the corner of the head. A little bit of something going on back here. I don't know if the gasket rolled or something on it. But anyways, we're gonna check the 2-step on this. I've got it set at 3200, and goes into gear really quick. Let's check reverse. Reverse is a little slow, but that's pretty standard. That thing's spicy. Finally finished up the yellow cab project. It's back with its owner, and haven't heard yet if he's tried to drive it or not yet, but we'll have some updates on that as time goes on. But as of right now, we're gonna restart on another project that got dropped off the other day. So let's head out to the shop and kind of tell you what's going on with this thing. We're getting in on Hill Raging Raisin here. So if you don't know, this is another one of my Honda buddies that I convinced to buy a Turbo LS car. And this car got dropped off here, I don't know, a month or so ago. And somebody had started to build this car. It was unfinished. A guy was selling it, and then my buddy found it online after he sold his Turbo Integra. He wanted an S10 so bad he could taste it. And we looked around and we started talking numbers and stuff. And I was like, best thing you can do is find something that somebody's already started to build and just build off of it, you know, and hope for the best. You know, you'll be money ahead that way. And anyways, we ended up with the car. The car's got a power glide in it, built 8.8 supposedly. It did not drive, but it did start and run. When he brought it to me, he'd only started it a handful of times. And when he got it here, I noticed, like, just off the rip that it had a misfire. Well, the whole passenger side bank wasn't firing because the coil wire for the Holley system wasn't connected on the back of the head. So it was missing on all those cylinders. He's got that fixed, got it fired up, got it running, and it sounded a little less like it had a camshaft in it. But the car came for me to button up, put a drive shaft in it, finish some plumbing on the cooling system, and we're going to tune it. A couple of little odds and ends. Well, then it turned into so much more because he didn't like that it had a stock truck intake. I'll see if I got pictures. I'll throw it in here of kind of what it looked like when it showed up. But got here. I kind of looked at it and we went over some stuff, and finally he's like, you know what, let's just tear into it, because he was under the assumption that this motor had been tore apart in this thing, had been gapped, the rings and all that stuff. And one thing I noticed whenever I started messing with the car is, first thing I noticed was the stock head bolts. Okay, that's fine, no big deal. I know a lot of people reuse stock head bolts, but if you look down here, this gasket, that is not an MLS gasket. That is the old crappy, like early 3rd gen, like composite head gasket. Those things do not take power. So I told him that. I pulled the valve covers off. I said, man, I don't think this motor's been tore apart. And pulled the valve covers off. And then once I just started looking at all the valve train, I thought, man, that sure doesn't look like that's ever been apart. And it is nasty. They said it had Pac 1218s. It looks like it's got stock springs. I mean, the bolts didn't look like they had any witness marks where they'd ever been taken off. So I'm not convinced these heads have ever come off this thing. So I told him that because we were doing the intake manifold because he wanted to switch it from the stock truck intake. And once I started really doing some stuff, I realized that. And I told him, he's like, you know what, let's just tear into it. So that's what we're doing today. But we're gonna get the heads off this thing, see what the inside of them looks like, see what the inside of the motor looks like. So let's get it apart and see what we find. So we got one head off. As you can see, it's got the old crappy composite gasket on it. It's not an MLS, which is why I wanted to take this thing apart. Since we're gonna lean on it, this thing wouldn't have made crap for power. When I started pulling the bolts out, a couple of the back ones actually were rusty, and you can see around that dowel pin, it appears that it was leaking water externally already. I mean, all the water jackets are just plumb full. Like this thing would have probably really sucked trying to keep cool. It's pretty nasty. I have a sneaking suspicion that there is water getting into the oil. It could be just from the fact that it's ran with E85 in it. It's possible because some of the head bolts had it around it. I won't know for sure until I get them pressure tested, but I am going to get these cleaned and pressure tested, and then I'll probably go ahead and have them surfaced. I'm gonna get the other side apart, see what it looks like, and then we'll get the balancer off, front cover off of it, and see if we got a camshaft in this thing or not. So we got both heads off, we got the balancer and stuff off. And, you know, this side's pretty grimy as well. Like there's just a bunch of like rust and stuff where it looks like the head gasket was seeping inside the engine here. I mean, man, it looks bad. But we're gonna try and pull it out. It does look like it has a camshaft in it, but at least from looking inside there, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out and then we'll make sure what it is. I was draining the oil and I pulled that plug. I had to stop and take a video of this because this is disgusting. Watch the clumps of shit. Look at this. Clumps. Look at that. Oh, here's a big clump. Well, we got the 4.8 out of the Mustang, but check out this pan, bro. Woo. Look at that. Oh yeah, that's good. Good shit. Well, so as you can tell, we did yank the motor out of the car. We did find out it had a camshaft in it, but once I decided to drain the oil, obviously we saw that sludge and junk that was inside the motor, inside the pan. And that is no bueno for something you're trying to make power. So we did pull it out and dissected it. And we are gonna update this. We're gonna do a Gen 4 bottom end instead of the Gen 3 stuff. So we'll get everything cleaned up, get the block and stuff machined, and then we'll put a 4th gen rotating assembly and stuff together for this thing. And then we can start going back together for it. We did opt for new cylinder heads since what I saw in that motor pretty much solidified that these heads are cracked. It was getting water and stuff in it, and we're not even gonna mess with those things. So we did order a set of Jeg cylinder heads. I've actually got 2 sets of them because we've got another set for another project that's coming up here in the near future. So keep following along. We got stuff coming, guys. We got a ton of stuff coming. But yeah, so we're gonna work on getting some parts gathered up for this thing. And this car will hopefully be out testing here pretty soon, and we'll do some test videos, dyno videos, and all this stuff on this project here. So keep following. There's gonna be a bunch more stuff coming on this car as well. That is gonna do it for today's video, guys. First episode of the Ragin' Raisin. No bueno. This thing is like every other project I feel like I get my hands on that somebody else has touched. It usually comes over here and then I have to try and fix somebody else's disaster. But this one's going to be a cool one. I can't wait to get this thing running and driving because we're going to beat the snot out of this car, and I'll be doing some testing and stuff with it. So anyways, that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Keep following along. The weather's getting nice and our new track is opening up soon. So there's going to be a ton of new track videos coming. Testing, BK, Civic, Mustang, my dad's car, Troy's new car. We're going to have tons of drag racing coming at you. So keep following. We'll see you guys on the next one.